What got me into hunting first when I was a child was my father. I think I was 10 years old. He took me out in the deer stand for the first time, and I actually got to harvest my first deer ever. For a 10-year-old, that was a big experience, but getting out there and just being with nature, it really talked to my soul. And my father taught me the correct laws and what not to do. And the biggest thing I like to say is what Aldo Leopold said in some of his books, is to do the right thing when no one's watching. And that's something that I live by. When you're out in the woods, no one's watching you. It's just you and nature and God. And I mean, when you can sit out there and just take it all in and be alone, you always want to do the right thing. My name is Scott Bauer. I'm a wildlife officer for the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency. So when I first started hunting, everybody goes through phases. And as a game warden, we teach this in hunter education, that each phase you go through, you gain more respect for the animals. You change as a hunter. Your method. You shoot a deer with an archery, with a bow and arrow, then you shoot a deer with a muzzleloader, then you shoot a deer with a high-powered rifle. You go through those phases. So when I was young and I was 10, I started those phases out. And as I went along, I think I turned 16, I believe it was, I shot my first deer ever with a bow and arrow. And that right there, I can think back, it started so many things for me. With a bow and arrow, the deer has to be close, very close to you. And so you get that different sense of nature with, you're so close to the animal. It's something you don't just see on TV. You can't get that feeling. You have to go out there in the woods and get it. And it actually opened up another whole door for me. I started photography at that time and really appreciating wildlife for more than just putting food on the table. It was, I could pass this on to future generations, pass it on to loved ones. I went out and I started photographing everything I could find. And when I was working, I'd be taking pictures of songbirds and whatever wildlife I could. And I just love being able to share those images, and also for myself. There might be days where we are stuck in the city and we're sitting in traffic, and I'm sitting at a desk, for example. I can look at that photo that I took, years ago of a beautiful songbird or a deer out in the wild, and I can take myself and put myself back in the woods at that moment. And that's what I like. It's that zen feeling, that stress relief. And that's why I go outdoors, is to just lose all the stress and the headache of life and just focus on what was here before us. Hunting is such a widespread thing that, it's been here for a long time, way before we were around. And it's something that we cannot see go away. We have to have hunting. And I don't just mean hunting. We need conservation. We have to manage them, because in the long run, if we don't, we'll be overrun with them. They will eat themselves out of house and home, and we can't allow that. We can help them help themselves. When it comes to lawmaking and regulations, a lot of times we look back in history. Well, why did the population go down 40 years ago? Why did it come up 20 years ago? And so we try to use the past to help us in the future, and we change the laws. So for example, 2 years ago you could harvest 4 turkeys. Now you can only harvest 3. And the reason why we changed that regulation was to protect the turkey, so that we can continue to hunt it in 40 years, because the wild turkey is a precious resource, and we had none in the state of Tennessee for the longest time. So now hunters, yes, you can still harvest 3, but if you combine that with 10,000 hunters, there's a lot more turkeys out there now. So it's a balance. All in all, it is just a balance between humans and wildlife, and making sure that everybody is happy, but also we're keeping the wildlife here and keep them happy. Otherwise, our children will never get to even experience it. It's not a sport. There's more to it. So for an anti-hunter or someone who's never hunted before, it's hard for them to understand why we do what we do. If I harvest an animal, it actually does take a lot out of me as a human being. I feel connected to the wildlife now, and so to truly harvest one and end its life, it means more to me than a lot of people would ever understand. And so I think to myself again that I'm managing the herd, I'm keeping a healthy herd. Believe it or not, I'm keeping them healthy by doing so. It's the circle of life, and it's something that's been going on forever. We have to do it. So for someone that doesn't understand that, I'd be glad to say, hey, come out with me, experience what I've experienced. And I've actually done that. As a wildlife officer, as a hunter, I've gotten people into it. A lot of juveniles I've taken a lot out hunting.
Yeah, if y'all are out there, you ain't ever been turkey hunting, go. It's fun stuff.
What do you think about this compared to deer hunting? A little more exciting?
Yeah, a little more exciting.
My fiance, for example, she's from Florida. She's never hunted in her life. And I took her out for the first time turkey hunting, and she loves it. She comes out, and a lot of times we have a video camera or a camera instead of a firearm. You know, we'll just go out and we'll take photos of deer and turkeys, and you know, we say we're going to go shoot deer. Well, it's just with a camera, and then I can take that home and I can share that. You know, it's not always about harvesting an animal, and that's something that we as sportsmen, you know, and I'm not a hunter, I'm a sportsman, that we like to share, that this is a beautiful thing. Actually, it's not ugly. We need hunters out there, but we just need people that are going to do it right. I just hope that we can pass along the passion that some of us have for these animals. I hope our future generation is smart and safe, and they have the biology side in their brain, that they focus on keeping our wildlife healthy, not over harvesting, but realizing that we have to have this management in there. I want the deer to have every advantage physically possible. I hunt with a longbow, for example, and I love the thought that I don't have the advantage anymore. And just recently, about a week ago, I was very, very blessed and very lucky enough to finish the story on a deer that I had been hunting and chasing for 2 years. You know, last year I found him on my trail camera. I saw him out in the woods, so I let him grow to the next year. I found his shed antler, you know, he dropped an antler, I found it, and that created that history with that animal. And to me, that changed everything. You know, there's so much more to hunting when you can have a story behind it. So, you know, this one deer became an achievement for me. I went out there with a chainsaw and I did a lot of hinge cutting. I created bedding areas. I created food plots. I put, you know, some browse on the ground for them that they could eat year round. I created this home for these animals that not only will benefit them, but benefit me. So after all this history was created, I've been hunting him this year, and I've seen him multiple times, but I couldn't get close enough because my bow and arrow, I can only shoot 25 yards. And just a week ago today, actually, I was lucky enough, and he came in at 15 yards, and I got to shoot him with my longbow, and it was a feeling like no other. No matter what, this deer, it could have been a world record, or it could have been the smallest deer in the world. This deer meant so much more to me than a score or a number or how many points he had on his antlers. So I waited, I sat in the tree stand for a couple hours. This is what's most important about this story. The first person that I called on my phone was my father. The person that brought me into the woods in the first place, that got me into hunting and conservation, and I'm here as a game warden now, was my father. So I called him first. I told him everything that was going on. He calmed me down because he knew how excited I was and nervous, and we talked it out for about 2 hours. He said, just stay in the stand, you know, and he brought me into it at 10 years old, and now at 31, he's the first person I call every time. And we talked it out. He was 4.5 hours away in Missouri, but believe it or not, he got in the truck and he drove down, and he got here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He wanted to be a part of it, and that was awesome. And that's what I'd like to do with my children one day, is get them out in the woods and just let them experience what I've experienced my entire life.